Hello everyone, my name is Mpendulo Mabaso. I'm a fourth year law student at University of Zululand, and today I'll be doing a talk on climate change. On the hierarchy of our models, we are on number 6, which is the last part, under industry, politics, livelihoods, and global warming. If you remember, one of the most important things that we have learned from our previous talk, human evolution, is that a new species is now inhabiting our planet. And in this talk, we are going to look at how this new species, which is now inhabiting our planet, contribute to climate change. But before we even get to that, I would like us to first look at the most important key points that this talk is going to cover: the introduction, the driving forces, the effects of climate change, how we can address climate change, why South Africa is a special place, and the conclusion. Now, the first thing to do would be to define climate change. And the easiest and simplest definition would be to say that climate change is a change of climate, which basically means that it is an increase in the average global temperatures as a result of the emission of the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Human activities as well as natural induced activities are believed to be the contributing factors to climate change. This basically means that the two driving forces behind climate change are the natural induced activities as well as human activities. So in these diagrams, I made a few examples of the natural induced activities as well as a few examples of the human activities. When we talk of the natural induced activities, one can look at the forest fires, volcano eruptions, decreased carbon sinks, solar output. And when we look at the human activities, we can include increased greenhouse gases emissions, deforestation, increased vehicles, and land use changes. Now, from these examples, I am going to take one example from the natural induced activities and explain how it contributes to climate change, as well as one example from the human activities and explain how it contributes to climate change. For example, when we look at the volcano eruptions, you should bear in mind that volcano eruptions, they emit particles as well as gases into the air. So some of these gases that the volcano eruptions emit has a cooling effect. For example, ash and sulfur dioxide. They then reflect the amount of sunlight emitted into the ground back into the space. And when we look at the example of the human activities, one can look at deforestation. For example, the cutting down of trees means that there are not enough trees to actually absorb carbon dioxide, and as a result the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere increases and it contributes to climate change. Now, we are going to look at the effects of the greenhouse gases. As you can see from our top left, we have the sun, which emits sun rays into the earth. And on the earth, because of the amount of carbon dioxide and other gases that are in the atmosphere, the heat that is emitted by the sun is trapped in the atmosphere, and then it keeps the earth warm, and some of the heat is reflected back into the space. This is how the emission of the greenhouse gases affects haze on our planet. And then here we have an example of a global attribution graphs from global to global land and global ocean. All these graphs, they show an increase in the average global temperatures as a result of the emission of the greenhouse gases, which were observed in the mid-20th century from the year 1900 to 2000. As you can see from all those graphs, when you look at firstly the global one, there is an increase in temperatures from the year 1900 to the year 1950, and an increase again around the year 2000. Also, the same observation can be made on the global land graph as well as the global ocean graph. There always been an increase in the average temperatures, and these are believed to be most likely because of the emission of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Now, I would like us to look at the effects that climate change has on our planet. From these photos, you can see that we can have rise in sea levels as a result of climate change, which may also lead to flooding, which will put a burden on our infrastructure as well as our food security. And also we have droughts, which also can put a burden on the food security, and it will contribute a loss in animals as well as in wildlife. And also when we look at the other photo on our bottom right, we have the burning of forest, which also has a negative effect on our health as human beings, because it may lead to respiratory problems and asthma diseases, which will put a burden on our healthcare system and our emergency services. Now, we can never talk about climate change and not talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not believe in climate change. He believes that climate change is a hoax, which was introduced by Chinese. So it is important for us to look at this, because as you know that Donald Trump is the president of one of the most famous countries in the world, and how he looks at climate change also affects the other countries which are underdeveloped. For example, these are some of the comments he made on his Twitter account. That if we look at the second one, it says that it is snowing and freezing in New York City. Whatever happened to global warming? I would like you to understand this. Just because it is snowing and freezing in New York City, it does not mean that all the other parts or regions in the world have to snow and freeze for us to say that there is actually global warming. But it may snow in New York City and may not snow in South Africa, but that does not change the fact that climate change is there, global warming is there, and as human beings we are contributing to climate change. And the same way we are contributing to climate change is the same way we can actually contribute in taking measures to deal with climate change. Now, speaking of the measures we can take in addressing climate change, one can look at the adaptation and mitigating factors, or rather the remedies that we can actually introduce. Obviously, we should be aiming for mitigation remedy, but then at the same time we need to adapt to the current situation that we are already facing. So one of the examples of adaptation would be to introduce health programs and upgrade or hardening or building of infrastructure. And then in dealing with mitigation, one of the things that we can do in order to mitigate the situation, or in order to try and not contribute to climate change, would be to use energy conservation and efficiency, renewable energy, and then sustainable transportation, as well as increase carbon sinks in the earth. And then now we are going to look at why is South Africa a special place. South Africa is a special place when it comes to climate, because it would make it easy for those that are studying climate as well as weather to actually look at the practical side of it. As you can see from these different photos over there, in South Africa we have different weather patterns. For example, in winter in KZN, in the Midlands, the mountains are drier and the Midlands are colder, and then the snow on the mountain in winter is huge. And this is experienced in provinces like KZN and Free State. And we also have summer rainfall areas like KwaZulu-Natal and Western Cape, whereby we have the warm Mozambican currents and the oceans, and it is warm usually most of the time. And we also have weather patterns that are extremely hot, for example, in Limpopo province. So having all these different weather patterns would make it easy for those that are studying climatology to actually study the theoretical part of it and also experience the practical part of it as well. So this is why South Africa is special when it comes to climate. And then to sum up would be to say that this talk basically covered human versus natural induced activities contributing to climate change, the impact climate change has in South Africa and Africa as a continent, and as well as how we can adapt and at the same time mitigate when it coming to climate change, or the measures that we can take in order to adapt or mitigate our contribution to climate change. And at last, you have to know this: you control climate change. Turn down, switch off, recycle, walk, and change. Thank you.